All righty, guys, we are back. Day 6. Can you believe it's been 6 days? We've been going at this for almost a week. So, welcome back to Mid Journey Madness. If you don't know, my name is Jay Stone. I'm a visual content strategist, and I help people build profitable brands and digital products using visual content. So, Mid Journey is by far like my favorite tool. Let me give myself a little more light. One of my favorite tools for creating just really great dynamic images. And a lot of people have asked the question, like, why do you prefer it? Right. So here are a few reasons that I prefer Mid Journey. One is just the extreme flexibility in dimensions. You can create any size you want to. You can make it square, you can make it tall, you can make it short, you can make it wide and long. And so you can customize the dimensions. Most other platforms either allow you to do like 2 or 3 sizes or dimensions. Okay. Number 2 is the difference in the art styles. It has literally thousands of styles and literally probably tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of styles that you can mix and match to create your own unique look and feel that nobody else can replicate. And then there's the extreme functionality that we have with um, the platform itself. Now that they've moved from Discord to the midjourney.com, it's an extreme amount of the editable functionality that goes into it. And then the last one is just, I've not seen any images that are better than Midjourney. Now, I will say this, that's all the pros. Here are the cons. There are certainly platforms that are better in terms of the prompt coherence, meaning it understands what you're asking it to do. Okay. And so I definitely think that Dolly by ChatGPT understands better. I definitely think Flux, okay, uh, by Black Forest understands better from prompt coherence, but they're still substandard. They're great for the things that they do, particularly Flux, especially Flux. And Flux is very close to Midjourney in the quality of what it delivers. Um, but they still don't compare. And so Midjourney is just like, if you had to learn PowerPoint, if you had to learn, Canva, it requires work and you have to develop a skill. Okay. So that being said, let's jump into day 6. And today we are going to be talking about art styles. We're going to continue talking about art styles and we're going to focus on cartoon art styles because I think people don't understand art styles are a huge part of that prompt structure. So we're going to be looking at cartoon art styles. So again, I'm going to give you the resources. We're going to be looking at the mid library. And then when you look for cartoons, you want to go to the artistic techniques section. And then, of course, you can explore Midjourney, and copy the prompts and copy the styles. So let's just jump over to the mid library for a brief second. All right. And this is a free resource. I actually pay for the premium resource because, I get some behind the scenes things that I like. But we want to start with artistic styles. Nope, I think actually, nope, we want to start with categories. And then you can go into things like illustrators. Okay, you can go into things like illustrators. So when we go into illustrators, you'll start to see, some of the artists here and how popular they are. But you want to click here. There's 919 illustrators. 919 illustrators. Okay. And so as you scroll through, kind of look at the ones that you might like. If there's an image that kind of catches your eye, click on it and it'll tell you either the art style or the artist, right? And then you click on it and it'll give you examples and you can take their name and things like that. Okay. It tells you a little bit about the artist. So this is still a great resource. But what I did with this, because we're talking about cartoons today, is I just simply typed in cartoon. Okay, so you can type in art style you're looking for, and it brings up all of these people where cartoon is part of, their portfolio. All right, so that being said, let's jump back to the presentation. I showed you guys on yesterday how to go through the Explorer page and copy the prompts and copy the styles. So I won't go over that again today, but let's look at some popular cartoon styles. Okay, so there's the comic book style, the children's storybook style, there's anime, caricature, coloring book, and hand drawn. Okay, so let's take a look at those. And I'm also going to share the prompt. So go ahead and screenshot this prompt because the way we write out the prompt matters. So I put comic book, right? Comic book, cartoon. So saying comic book isn't enough. We still have to tell it that we want a cartoon because they can do a comic book illustration. It will do a comic book in a real photography. It'll just give it a comic book vibe. Okay, so it's important to still include the art style, right, and the art genre, which is cartoon. Okay, so chubby plus size. I did a double prompt there. Sometimes it doesn't, if it has a lot of stylization, it won't give you plus size or tall or middle-aged or things like that. So sometimes I have to double and triple prompt, meaning I have to give it multiple words to say the same thing. Chubby, plus size, obese, full figure. Sometimes I have to do that to drive home what I'm looking for, right? Superhero wearing a lime green costume with a D on its chest, long silver hair, gray and black background. These are my brand colors. Wide angle. We talked about angles and distance yesterday. We talked about keeping that chaos at 30, the 2-3. I'm showing it on a 1-1 ratio, but 2-3 is what I prompted it as. And look how low this stylization number is. Why? Because I needed it to adhere to the prompt as closely as possible. Okay, and it was kind of giving me more Midjourney beautification. Okay, so we've got the same prompt. Here it is in comic book. It did not give me the full figure here, but I still like what I got. This is a hand-drawn cartoon, and this is a caricature. All right, so let's go to the next set. Same prompt, okay? Here it is, a coloring book. Coloring book falls in the illustration and the cartoon categories, okay? It can be an illustration or cartoons because those are still two different looks. We've got and these are styles for creators. I'm sorry, I should have told you. Marketing styles were these three: comic, hand drawn, caricature. And then for creators, right? People who create things to sell, they use coloring book. Children's storybook is probably the most popular style, that and Pixar. Okay. And then anime is becoming increasingly popular for people who are in the graphic novel genre. Okay. So, and again, here's a Pixar brand. Think The Incredibles, right? That's going to be Pixar. Think Toy Story. That's Pixar. All right. And then, so that's a brand. Pixar is a brand that you can use in your prompt. And then Jen Bartel is an artist. So you can say in the style of as an artist. Now, early on, they tried to, they started out doing it in the style of, and then the artist got up in the air and started to sue and say, you don't have our permission to train your models using our artwork. And now people can't tell the difference between our artwork and, AI artwork, and I'm offended and I didn't get compensation. And so Midjourney and the other image generators tried really, really hard to get people to say in the style of. Right? Particularly for living artists. Like if it's Van Gogh, nobody was like pitching a bitch. But the living artists absolutely were. Well, the images have been trained, the internet has been trained, everybody's been trained, and so people are still doing it. They're going back to it, and they're developing even more artists. So I'm going to say, but you will find, I'm saying that because you will find when you go to say Bing, and sometimes Dolly, and you put in the artist's name, it will not use the artist's name. It'll give you an error on the prompt. Okay. So if you start to run into that, then you'll have to use an image reference. And we talk more about image references, how to use image references on the 14th, March 14th. We'll be talking about reference images, and that's how you'll get around having something look like the artist, but not use the artist name. By the way, if you haven't already checked out my Midjourney Ultra course, right? This gives you all that I'm teaching here in a lot more detail. Okay, you get this in a lot more detailed, right? So it goes through things like, yeah, your account setup, your prompt structure, but the style personalization, we are going to talk about it to some degree, but I'm going to tell you how to do the style personalization, the consistent images, the consistent characters, the image editor. Okay, and this is for beginners and advanced. We actually combine the beginners and the advanced course. So get your the link is in the description. So make sure you check out the Midjourney course. Okay, back to the training. So you can use artists or brands. And let's talk about some famous artists. So we're going to look at comic book artists. So Jackie Ormez is an African-American female. She's one of the first African-American females that ever did like famous comic book illustrations. Okay. Brian Stelfreeze is the guy that kind of illustrated the early Black Panther comics. Parish Nath is an Indian artist that is well regarded, and Gabrielle D'Amoto, she's an Italian artist, and she's currently she works for Marvel. Now, Brian is a living artist, and so is Gabrielle. Okay, so I can't remember about the others, but they are listed in the mid library. Okay, so that's where I got all of these from. When we talk about caricatures, start thinking about like newspaper editorials when there might be a caricature of a political figure that has a story of satire attached to it. Caricatures are often editorial, right? But we also see them like when you go to an amusement park, there's an artist there and they draw a caricature of you. Okay. And so caricatures are really, really fun in marketing. Okay. So Anne Talanes does editorial, and so does Gary Virgo. Okay. Now let's get into the hand drawn. Marta Abad Blay is Spanish. So you'll see the Spanish influence. Abby Lossing, you see her stuff in a lot of magazines. Tex Avery is an animator, and Ronald Wimberly does a lot of contemporary art. Now, remember yesterday when we talked about blends? Okay, we're going to talk about blends again. And I don't know why. Okay, let's refresh and see why my little images not coming up right this second. Okay, here they go, and they're back. Thank you, Canva. Okay, blends and trends. All right, so we blended several of the artists. Okay, so we've got James Ormez, Abby Lossing, and Ronald Wimberly. And then we want a cartoon style, and we did the same prompt we did earlier. Black, chubby, plus size females as a superhero. Look at how different these are, right? So when you're blending, whatever you put first in the prompt is going to get most of the influence. So Jackie Ormez is going to get most of the influence. Okay, Jackie gets most of the influence. That's why these two look similar. But with this one, right, it starts getting into, you start seeing what Abby might have looked like or Ronald. Okay, so we blended the three to give us a very different look and feel. All right, so let's jump over into Midjourney and just kind of look at some of the things that were generated. All right, so here's Jackie right here. These are some images I generated from Jackie. Right, and then let's look at some of the images. This is for Jen Bartel. Hers is slightly different. And as you can see, these still look different. Even though I'm saying cartoon, this looks more similar to Pixar. And so does this one. And this one looks more, you know, of the illustrated. And this one kind of looks like Pixar. Okay. And I did say Pixar animation in that one. So I did say Pixar. Okay. So here's the ones, the three that are Pixar. That one definitely looks like a Pixar. For sure, this looks like the Inside Out film, right? And then that's a Pixar. Okay, so Pixar. So don't be afraid to say Pixar claymation, right? That's the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Abominable Snowman little uh, animations that we see at Christmas that are like 3D. Those are claymation. So we can look at the different ones and say, hey, let me put this in here and see if this is going to show up in the training. And so I love this one. I put in hand drawn for this one. I love how I get that vintage look from this one. And if you know me, you know I do a lot of 50s pop, vintage, and a lot of these. In fact, let's go back, and that one is hand drawn, hand drawn. These are the coloring. So as you can see, these cartoons, this one, I think I put the word vintage in that one. And you see that one in my presentation. Okay. Now let's talk very briefly about the coloring pages because they are their own thing. Okay. And I just put them in the cartoon category because a lot of people want to do children's coloring books. And so I would say children's coloring book cartoon character. But there's so many different kinds, right? There's children's coloring book, there's adult coloring book. The difference is going to be like how much detail they put in there for the lines. And then there's thick lines, thin lines, hand-drawn, digital. Coloring pages is its own thing. I do not use Midjourney for my coloring pages. I recently started using Canva. If you took my Canva coloring pages course, you already saw that. But sometimes you just need a coloring image. Okay, coloring image. All right, so that's it for today. That's it for today. Tomorrow, what are we going to be covering for tomorrow? We are going to be covering SREF codes. SREF codes, so that's another art style. There are certain, Midjourney has its own aesthetic, but it has several that are already built in, right? But it's kind of like nobody knows where they are. They're hidden, but there are a few people that have started to discover and log these SREF codes. So I'm going to find some great ones for you, and we'll get that moving. So I'll see you guys back here tomorrow at 6. And I appreciate you joining me. All right. Have a good night.